Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Russia invades Ukraine with overnight military attacks. Public Expenditure Review presents recommendations to tackle learning loss and student dropouts in school. And later in sports, Jamaica Cricket Association gets provisional approval. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. We begin with news overseas as Russian forces have launched a major assault in Ukraine, firing missiles on cities and military targets. The invasion by land, air and sea began after a pre-dawn TV address where Russian President Vladimir Putin demanded that Ukraine's military lay down its arms. Initial reports of casualties included Ukrainian civilians and soldiers and Russian troops. Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky insists his country, quote, won't give up its freedom. No, Ukraine has declared martial law and severed all diplomatic ties with Russia. It says weapons will be given to anyone who wants them. Now, for more on this story, we go to the CNN.
We are here at the Antonov Airport, which is about 25 kilometres, 15 miles or so out of the centre. These troops you can see over here. Stand up, Lewis. These troops you can see over here, they are Russian airborne forces. They have taken this airport. They've allowed us to come in and be with them as they defend the perimeter of this air base here, where helicopter-borne troops, these troops, were landed in the early hours of this morning to take and to form an air bridge to allow for more troops to come in. You can see these are Russian forces. You can tell they're Russian. I've spoken to them already. You can tell they're Russian. They've got that orange and black band to identify them as Russian forces. I've spoken to the commander on the ground there within the past few minutes, and he said they are now in control of this airport. And within the past few seconds, just before you came to us, they were engaged in a firefight, presumably with the Ukrainian military, which says it is staging a counter-offensive to try and take back this airport. We can tell you now, I'm standing outside the perimeter of this Antonov air base, and it has not been taken back by the Ukrainian military. It is the Russian military. You can see them now moving back to a different position. It is the Ukrainian military who say they are now in control. This is about, I would say, about 20 miles from the centre of the Ukrainian capital. And so it just shows us now for the first time just how close Russian forces have got towards the centre of the Ukrainian capital. It's not just, I was speaking to officials earlier, Ukrainian officials, and they're saying that the plan isn't just to surround the Ukrainian capital. They fear now that the plan is to take the capital, to decapitate the leadership of Ukraine and to replace that leadership with a pro-Russian government. That's what Ukrainian officials are telling us now they think is the Russian plan. And I can tell you, it is a very tense situation. We're expecting to see Ukrainian military force. We didn't even know, frankly, we didn't even know that, the Russian forces were going to be here. We assumed this was the Ukrainian forces. So I went up to speak to them saying, hey, we've come from Kiev, but it only emerged during the conversation that they're all Russians and there are no Ukrainian military forces in sight, although I can hear them because they've been shooting ferociously in the course of the past few minutes. And so we're sort of in the defensive position behind this wall here. We've got our car here with the crew here as well. As the Russian airborne troops defend this position that they've taken on the outskirts of Kiev.
Back locally, a Public Expenditure Review, PER, for Jamaica's education sector has put forward recommendations to tackle learning loss and student dropout across the island. The PER, which was launched yesterday, is a partnership between the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, and the World Bank. Sandy Williams has that story.
According to a Public Expenditure Review on the local education system, Jamaica's spending on the sector is relatively high and adequate when compared to other countries in the Latin America and the Caribbean. While the report indicates that the education system is consistent with international standards, it has highlighted concerns about resource allocations and underutilized capacity in some areas. Despite a high education expenditure, the spend has not translated into increased learning outcome.
And that suggests that there's room to improve the efficiency of spending. And then our next recommendations look at some of the areas that you could improve that efficiency. The first would be better allocation or reallocation of spending across levels of education, from preschool to tertiary. And broadly, we find that compared to other countries, Jamaica is spending less on preschool education and more on tertiary than similar countries.
As it relates to infrastructure needs, the government has spent less.
The government spending on preschool and pre-primary education or primary education generally benefits the more poor families, whereas tertiary spending is more likely to favor better off families. And households are still spending a lot of their own money on education. There is a very important school feeding program in Jamaica, but it doesn't reach all of the vulnerable students, and there's still some students that are from the better off families that are benefiting from this program.
The review also revealed that learning loss has jumped by 1.3 years, adding that a higher percentage of girls have dropped out of school at the secondary level than boys. It says though education is free in Jamaica, the cost of attending school is significant for some families. The public expenditure review recommends that the government reduce the risk of student dropout to reverse the learning loss. This is expected to cost between $2.4 and $3.9 billion annually for the next 1 to 2 years.
But our team estimated that the cost of not doing anything in terms of the lost revenue from these children or these as they become workers later would be almost 8.28 billion Jamaican dollars. So relative to the cost of not doing anything, it would be a good investment. And so there are some very specific measures that can be taken. That includes supporting the health and safety requirements for safe reopening of schools, campaigns to encourage re-enrollment and outreach to get kids back in school, targeted financial support for children most at risk of dropping out, and other programs to reduce dropout and also to support teachers to mitigate those learning losses, and so they can tailor what they do in the classroom to what each student actually needs.
Other recommendations include improving tertiary education spending and the quality of early childhood education and optimizing the school network. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
A call this afternoon for more residents to help the authorities stop environmental breaches. It comes as the government acknowledges that the recent outcry against illegal sand mining in St. Elizabeth helped stop the issue. Minister Matthew Samuda gave an update during Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing. Herman Green reports.
The residents of Great Bay in St. Elizabeth say after seeing weeks of sand being mined in their community, they called on the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, to intervene. That led to a stop order, an investigation, and Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Matthew Samuda, leading a tour of the area on the weekend. He gave an update at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing.
We can report that at this stage an enforcement notice and a cessation order have been served on the individual that would have been mining illegally sand in the Great Bay area.
The illegal operation saw sand dunes being removed. Residents say the dunes protect the area from flooding during heavy rains, and so they reported the matter out of fear and concern for their own safety. According to Minister Samuda, steps are being taken to rehabilitate the sand dunes, whereby restoring the natural protection for the community. Additionally, he says the authorities are moving to ensure that the full extent of the law is applied to this case.
There's a broader point, however, that we wish to bring across to citizens. We encourage you to bring to our attention matters of environmental concern. NEPA, the police, no enforcement agency will ever have the full footprint that we wish we would have in Jamaica. So we need you to be our eyes and ears. When matters of this nature are brought to our attention, we will take the strongest action possible within the law.
Mr. Samuda also says steps are being taken to strengthen and enforce laws that seek to protect sand dunes and coastal areas.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. There's another call this afternoon for issues within the traffic ticketing system to be fixed. One taxi operator is pointing to flaws that he says are hindering his operation. Conrad Rose from Port Maria St. Mary says he's been unable to renew his driver's badge as the Transport Authority says he has outstanding traffic tickets with fines amounting to $586,000. But according to Mr. Rose, he has no outstanding ticket. He says when he visited several tax and court offices in St. Anne's Bay and Port Maria, there was no record of any outstanding tickets. But the Transport Authority says otherwise.
I don't pay for my badge already. And them say me have outstanding ticket and I can't find on the system. And I have it on the system say me owe.
You have any outstanding ticket?
No outstanding ticket me have. Every time warrant come from my court from the court office and go to the station, me know. And if me miss the court date, me go and find out and me go court. Me don't have none. Police don't have no warrant for me. No outstanding ticket in the tax office. So how transport office.
And he's still being summoned to court.
They take it to court, which we paid the last in 2020. We pay $1,500 for the badge, and then some more rectify it and come back. And all of them can give me. We went court on the 10th of February. I will show the judge everything with my badge expire. The judge still charge me $2,000 and tell me say, I feel me and the police and transport are fear. Her matter is to charge me.
And he is now appealing to the Transport Authority to look into the issue to avoid further challenges. To the latest now on the coronavirus, Jamaica's COVID-19 positivity rate has fallen to 5.6%. 58 new cases were reported by the Health Ministry in the last 24 hours from 1,191 samples. The overall case count now stands at 127,799. There have been 10 new deaths, pushing the death toll to 2,808. 169 patients are in hospital. 4 are critically ill, while 14 are severely ill. In the meantime, 277 persons have recovered from COVID-19. The overall recovery count is 75,950. Immunologist Dr. Johan White is reiterating the need for Jamaicans who haven't taken the COVID-19 vaccine to do so now. Dr. White said the vaccine is particularly effective against the Omicron variant that continues to dominate the number of infection cases.
We realized that there are two contributing factors. One, after about 5 to 6 months, protective levels of antibodies or immune protection from your initial vaccine would have decreased over time. And secondly, the Omicron variant demonstrated some features that indicated that there might not have been, you may need a better immune top-up, if you will, in order to protect you from that particular variant.
Dr. White said if persons are hesitant, they should seek advice, noting it's not too late to take the jab.
Have a conversation with your healthcare provider. I think many persons have a lot of questions that they've not had the opportunity to ask, and you just pay your healthcare provider a visit or give them a call. A lot of healthcare providers now are doing telemedicine where you don't have to actually go into an office, and you can have that conversation to raise any concerns that you may have.
To other news, People's National Party caretaker for Kingston Central, Imani Duncan Price, has started a foundation to fill the gap of affordable housing for low-income earners. In continuing the work from former MP for Central Kingston, Ronald Thwaites, for easier and more affordable housing, the foundation seeks to help with the process towards housing development. Now, workers will be able to go through the NHT to access the benefits they are entitled to.
I've been advocating with NHT and other entities around social housing, not free housing, but how they can access their benefit once the titles are in hand to then develop their own housing in terms of renovations, in terms of adding on a bathroom, or even partnering with the foundation to contribute the land to the process, and then we develop apartment buildings, affordable, dignified housing for NHT contributors to live in good housing. 2-bedroom apartments, bathroom, etc., so that their families can be solidly secure.
And it's now time for the Business Minute with Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, Oil prices have surged past $100 a barrel to hit their highest level in more than 7 years after Russia launched an invasion of Ukraine. Global shares fell and the price of gold rose as investors worried about the possible impact of the conflict. Russia is the second biggest exporter of crude oil and is also the world's largest natural gas exporter. The price of oil topped $105 a barrel, and UK motoring groups said petrol prices had hit another record high. Lasco Distributors earned more profit and revenue during its third quarter compared to the same period in 2020. During the 3 months to December, the company's profit was 17% higher at $286 million. Improved sales of beverages and nutrition products drove up earnings. Lasco Distributors raked in $5.8 billion. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have the midday. And just before sports, we go to the top stories from the region with Sandy Williams.
In Haiti, Prime Minister Dr. Ariel Henry has deplored the death of journalist Maxime Lazier, who was killed on Wednesday as he covered a protest demonstration by textile workers calling for higher minimum wage than what had been announced by the government earlier this week. Lazier, a photojournalist with the online media RDI, was shot and killed instantly during the demonstration, while 3 other journalists were injured, 2 of them by bullets. Media reports said that heavily armed men in a vehicle opened fire on the demonstrators. There were also reports that several people were injured by gunfire from individuals wearing police uniforms and traveling in a vehicle without number plates. In Belize, the government has roundly condemned Russia's unjustified and unprovoked attack on Ukraine. In a statement, it said Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a blatant breach of international law and of its obligation under the United Nations Charter. The statement further noted that it also constitutes an unacceptable violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Russia's actions are an assault on the international system itself and cannot be countenanced by any peace-loving state. Belize is the first CARICOM country to condemn Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And those were the top regional stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. TVJ Sports has been reliably informed that the Jamaica Cricket Association has gotten provisional approval of the resumption of local cricket. A source close to the JCA told TVJ Sports that the association is now in the process of getting additional venues approved, but has set a tentative time period of April to have local competitions resume. TVJ Sports also understands that only fully vaccinated players will be allowed to play. The Reggae Girls have remained third in the February edition of the CONCACAF Rankings Index. The United States continues to lead the index, followed by Canada, while Mexico, Trinidad and Tobago and Costa Rica round out the top 6. The Reggae Girls defeated Bermuda 4-0 and Grenada 6-1 in their opening 2 fixtures of the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup qualifiers recently. The Jamaicans will next be in action on April 9 against the Cayman Islands away before welcoming the Dominican Republic at home on April 12. 2 more wins will send Jamaica to the final round of the CONCACAF Women's World Cup qualifiers in Mexico in July. The top 4 teams will qualify for the World Cup in Australia and in New Zealand in 2023, while 2 spots will be allocated to head to the Intercontinental Playoffs. Reggae Girls goalkeeper Yasmin Jameson has signed a 1-year deal with Simcoe County Rovers in the Canadian 2nd Division. The 23-year-old earned this deal after impressing with a P18 FC in the Swedish 3rd tier. Simcoe County Rovers is now the third club of Jameson's professional career. Jameson was also a member of Jamaica's squad at the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in France. She has made 3 appearances for the Reggae Girls since her debut in 2018. And finally this afternoon, Reggae Boys striker Kemar Roof and Rangers FC will be looking to book their place into the round of 16 of the UEFA Europa League as they face Borussia Dortmund in Scotland this afternoon. Rangers FC holds a 4-2 aggregate lead from the first leg in Germany last week. Kickoff is at 3 o'clock Jamaica time. Fellow Reggae Boys strikers Mikel Antonio of West Ham United and Shamar Nicholson of Spartak Moscow are already into the round of 16 of the competition. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Giovanni, it's over to you.
Thanks so much, Simon, and that's it indeed for the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.